pause briefly and explain. My name is Frederick Frankfurt Fletcher, and I am an accountant by trade. Also, I'm a vampire. Yes, I probably should have led with that second bit, but to be honest, the accountant part factors far more frequently into my daily life than does my status as an undead American. Aside from a sunlight allergy, a predominantly liquid diet, bought through appropriate and legal sources, thank you very much, and the power to work for days at a time, being a vampire hadn't changed me much. It had, however, dramatically impacted my social circle. From Crystal, my girlfriend, who worked for a parahuman policing organization known as the Agency, to Neil and Albert, a pair of best friends who also happened to be a necromancer and zombie, respectively, all the way to the very house we were standing in, since Charlotte Manor was a living entity with unique powers all her own. While I'd had very few friends as a human, my parahuman social circle was full to near bursting, a fact that I was always grateful for. Charlotte appeared next to me as Amy, Bubba, and Crystal all gathered about Neil and Albert, congratulating Neil on the milestone and Albert on managing not to blow the secret of the surprise party. Although her exact appearance varied with the occasion and her mood, Charlotte was tonight dressed in one of her usual gowns. It looked as if it had been pulled straight out of a Victorian romance, complete with a wide skirt that had to use magic to avoid knocking things over. "Dinner will be ready in 10 minutes, Fred," she reported dutifully. Since most of us rented some form of space or another from Charlotte, be it offices or living quarters, meals were part of the package, not to mention one of her greatest selling features. Even if it was woven together mostly from magic, Charlotte was a fantastic chef, and she'd agreed to put together something special for the evening's festivities. I'm going to be a waiter coming around with champagne, beer, and soda in a few minutes as well. Also, Arch and Lillian have both asked me to send you to their respective quarters as soon as possible. I'd been wondering where the newest employee of Fletcher Accounting Services was, as Lillian was rarely one to miss a party, or any of Charlotte's meals. In the months since she'd been freed from her old vampire clan and joined the one I'd hastily founded, the House of Fred, thanks to Crystal muddling with the paperwork, she'd slowly been acclimating to life outside a rigorously controlled organization. Arch, on the other hand, generally only popped in for brief stints between missions and often took his meals in his room, though, given that he was training Albert, and therefore Neil by extension, I had somewhat expected him to make it down. Some manner of agency task had probably demanded his attention instead, since he was employed by the same people as Crystal. Neither of them spoke much about work due to the secretive nature of what they did, but I was slowly piecing enough together to suspect that despite their both being called agent, they had a lot of differences in their actual jobs. Charlotte, when Lillian asked for me to come by, was she hunched over a large stack of documents or swearing at her laptop? The latter. It's actually quite nostalgic. I haven't heard some of those curses being thrown about for decades. Charlotte smiled, looking briefly wistful for the tenants who had constructed her a very long time ago. But she didn't break anything in frustration, so I'd say she is making progress. Well, that made the choice of who to see first simple. Lillian was working on her study materials and some small-scale assignments I'd handed over, so she was likely calling me for help. The woman was a hard worker and a dedicated student, making tremendous progress in learning the trade of accounting, but no one could master the craft without occasional bits of guidance. If she was asking for assistance, then it must be something quite difficult. It was probably better if I encouraged her to take the night off for Neil's party and deal with the issue tomorrow. But even that might require some convincing, as she was determined to get her credentials as soon as possible. Better to start with Arch, who was nothing if not